the policy and public affairs team at Ukie does, how you can have your voice heard to policymakers through Ukie, and a quick run through of what this has successfully resulted in the past. So first of all, what is it that we actually do? So in general, the trade body Ukie, we work to further the interests of the UK games industry. In terms of the policy and public affairs team specifically, we act as your voice to government and policymakers throughout the UK. So we essentially work to represent the industry's views in Westminster and beyond, and we want to help shape the regulatory and political landscape to help make sure the UK remains the best place to make, sell and play games. What we say as a trade body can usually hold more weight and more impact as we're speaking on behalf of the industry as part of a unified voice, rather than a single company raising a concern just by itself. Now, we don't just work at the UK level alone, we also input at the European level with our sister trade organisation ISFI, and we work with national trade bodies as well around the world on global issues. In terms of what this looks like specifically, it's through a range of ways. So often we will need to provide the inputs of the games industry in important consultations. These might be launched to help with the development of a new piece of legislation, regulation, or it might just be to sense check where the industry is in terms of a particular issue. Of course, in order for us to respond to these consultations, we will usually consult with our own members and the industry ourselves in order to ensure that our response is robust and reflective of the games industry. That's why we're always really keen to hear from games businesses, especially if there's a specific issue that you're interested in seeing change on. We also connect local games businesses with their respective MPs. This provides you with the opportunity to reflect your experiences and concerns you have directly with a parliamentarian. You'll find that MPs are quite interested to know what policy measures are helping your business grow and what barriers there are in preventing them from doing so. They might even take this issue up themselves in Parliament. This is on top of pretty much a near daily basis of us engaging with policymakers with a vast array of contacts across government, Parliament and other organisations. We tend to echo what has been said to us by games companies to who we contact with. We particularly reach out at key points in the calendar, for example around the budget, and we also monitor Parliament to check if anything has been said about games that we need to follow up on. Finally, I'm sure running a games business is very time consuming to say the least, and all these policy changes might be quite complicated for you. So we also work to help our members and the industry understand these changes through digestible briefings and also Fortnightly newsletter as well. Just as an example, here are some recent consultations that we've responded to. So like I said, some of these are on the impact of something on the industry, like COVID-19, and others are to help with the development of policy, for example, the Labour Party's consultation into digital policy. So as you can see, we're fairly busy, but what does this work actually amount to, and does having a trade body's voice actually result in any wins for the industry? You can probably guess what my answer will be to this question, otherwise this will be a very short talk. So here are some highlights of what we've achieved thanks to the industry's support over the past few years. And before I go through these, of course, I just want to stress that these weren't achieved just by Ukie alone. These often came about through working with sister organisations, allies in government and other organisations, and also the industry, of course, as well. So first of all, the Peggy age rating system. So I'm sure we're all familiar with Peggy and also the fact that it's legally enforceable. This actually wasn't always the case. Previously, games were rated by the British Board of Film Classification. It wasn't until about 2008 a new report was released. It was called the Byron Review, and it basically sparked a debate about how we should label games and how they could be more transparent for parents and carers. So Ukie at the time, we championed for the Peggy age rating system, as it was perceived to be a bit more accurate for the interactive medium of games, but also it's a little bit more transparent because, as we all know, they're colour-coded and they've got content descriptors and so on. So this resulted in the Digital Economy Act in 2010, and this led to the official adoption of the Peggy rating system, along with the legal enforcement of it for minors as well. Next is the video games tax relief. So this is often cited us nearly again on a daily basis for being a key means of support for games businesses. And it's also said to be a large factor in the attractiveness of the UK for international investors. So the UK lobbied on this for many years, including on responding to a government consultation on this in 2012. And our response was really boosted by the opinions of about 200 games companies who chipped in their opinion. So this is a really important bit of work for the industry. We know that, for example, about 63% of recipients of the tax relief actually would not have been able to make their games if it wasn't for the tax relief to begin with. Ukie's lobbied on, again, thanks to industry input, a couple of other things as well. For example, the UK Games Fund. This has been another boost for the industry. I think there's been about 1,000 applications since its induction, and a lot of these are for games companies based outside of London. So it's really good for games companies no matter where they are in the UK. We also pushed for the establishment of a London Games Festival. We now co-lead on this with Games London. So this has facilitated about over 5,000 meetings between investors and studios. So it's really helping that investment environment in the UK. Lastly, and also worth mentioning, is the Ukie Initiative Digital Schoolhouse. So this was established as a result of computing being included in the curriculum. And computing itself was added as the result of a report called the Next Gen Skills Report. This was released in 2011, and Ukie again supported this. And DSH basically helps teachers and pupils engage with the computing curriculum. So as you can see, we have achieved quite a bit over the years. And again, this is all thanks to industry input, working with us and giving their feedback and telling us what works for them. So after hearing all of this, you might be itching to know how you can get involved and how you can have your voice heard. So first things first, the easiest thing to do, just drop us an email and talk to us. As said before, we're really keen to hear from members about any particular issues that you're facing, particularly if you have any numbers or statistics to back these up. We can quite easily tap into our contacts in government or parliament, but usually they'll naturally need some kind of evidence to back these issues up. Just by way of an example to demonstrate this, say you are struggling to recruit international talent and you'd like some changes to the immigration system. What I'd advise you do is then you keep track of how many international employees you have, the costs of employing them, and what changes specifically you would like and what impact this would have on your business, just things like that. Meet with your MP. So like I said before, we facilitate often meetings between MPs and their local games companies. We can draft the letter for you, we can draft the agenda, we can even sit in on the meeting with you to support you if you'd like. Responding to calls for evidence and consultations. So I briefly touched on this a few seconds ago. So you won't necessarily have to do this by yourself as a business, as Ukie will respond to relevant consultations on behalf of the industry. But again, as said before, in order to really boost our responses, we do require evidence from members and the industry. So often if there's a consultation that we're writing a response to, we might send out a call out in our newsletter to send in any evidence or opinions from yourselves. Arrange a chat with the Ukie policy team. So what really boosts our asks to government, and I know I keep saying this over again, is industry input, and particularly case studies about business experiences of businesses. Just to give you another example on this, when we responded to consultations regarding the impact of COVID-19, we had the opportunity to have 30-minute sort of deep dive interviews with our members. We spoke about what the impact of COVID was, what types of support they'd like to see, and so on. And it really did fill out our response and gave it some weight. Finally, as I mentioned, we have a fortnightly policy newsletter. So this is basically a highlight reel of the policy world, particularly for the games industry. It also shows you engagements that we've been on recently, for example, if we've met with MPs or we've been on roundtables ourselves. And it also highlights what's been said in Parliament. For example, if video games have been mentioned by an MP, we'll give you a little snapshot of that in the newsletter as well. So there's a little QR code there if you'd like to scan that to subscribe to it. So I'll leave that up for a few minutes. But if anyone has any questions, do feel free to get in touch. My email is grace@ukie.org.uk.